Okay, let's get into the next shiur. The next shiur I want to discuss here in the Tzurba M'Rabanan volume number 22. As we continue with Hilchos Shabbos, we spoke about emergencies, we spoke about electricity, we spoke about Amir La'akom in the past two shiurim, and now we get into issues of Maaseh Shabbat. Maaseh Shabbat, something that has come up already, but now we'll talk about it per se. Two shiurim, as we know, Maaseh Shabbat, starting with page 225 here in the volume, the Dr. Harold and Magda Katz volume. We're up to shiur Hay in the volume 225. So this topic, Maaseh Shabbat, is post-Malacha. Meaning we know there is an Isser D'Oraisa do Malacha on Shabbos, and there are many Isserei D'Oraisa, there are many Isserei D'Rabbanan, but this whole topic is post, once Malacha was done. Am I allowed to get benefit? So you might say, what do you mean? What's done is done. Maybe if I did the Malacha, maybe Chote Niskar, we know on me, but what about if somebody else does it? Yeah, so that's Maaseh Shabbat. So that is a sugya that comes up in a few places in Shas. And we're going to talk about that. It depends on who did the malacha, Jew or non-Jew. It depends. Was it a daraisa? Was it a drabanan? Was it a mazid? Was it a shogeg? All three of those questions have ramifications that we will see. So here we go. Page 225. We start with the Gemara in Maseches Ksubas Daf Lamed Daled. Three-way machlokas tanoim about Maaseh Shabbat. Three shitas, says the Gemara, the Tanya. And there's a machlokas Rishonim how to interpret this machlokas Tanoim, and who we poskim, as we will see. Says the Gemara, the Tanya, Mavashal b'Shabbos. If somebody cooks on Shabbos, that's the case that's given in the Gemara. Mavashal b'Shabbos, b'shogeg yochal, b'mezid lo yochal. Dear very Rabbi Meir, Meir makes a chilik between, and b'shogeg he says one can eat the food, and b'mezid one cannot eat the food. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, b'shogeg, Rabbi Meir is the most makel, as we'll see. Rabbi Yehuda, the middle shita, b'shogeg yochal Motzi Shabbos. B'shogeg, you could eat it on Motzi Shabbos. B'mezid lo yochal lamas. B'mezid, never can it be eaten. We'll see who it's talking about. Rabbi Yochanan Asan bar Omer, the most chamor shita. B'shogeg, even shogeg you can't eat it right away. B'shogeg, or even Motzi for himself, as we'll see. B'shogeg yochal Motzi Shabbos la'achir v'lo. Motzi on shogeg, other people could eat it on Motzi Shabbos and not him. B'mezid lo yochal lamas v'lo afir. So three different shitas regarding if one violates a Shabbos, what's called a Maaseh Shabbat. What is the halacha? Rashi in Chulin, or this comes up in Chulin and in Ksubis and in Shabbos. So Rashi in Chulin explains the svaras behind Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. They're not beferish in the Gemara. So look at Rashi in source number 2. Chulin Tezvav. This is first Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says b'shogeg yochal. What does that mean? Hu atzmo ubo bayom. B'shogeg, if Malachas b'shogeg, Meir says anybody, even the person, he did it b'shogeg. He did it right away. We're going to fine him? No, he did it b'shogeg. Yochal u'atzmo ubo bayom ve'ein sarach lahamden on erev b'chlesh yasu. You don't have to wait. You have to wait up. B'shogeg, even he could eat right away. B'mezid, where there was an isser done, then lo yochal bo bayom. Ad sheteshach b'chlesh yasu, that he can't eat it, or others neither can eat it. La'achir nami das lo mechlo bo bayom. The time we shum lo nimte hana'a me isurahu. We don't want, since it was done by Mazid, we can't let anyone get hana from this isur. V'fi shahi lo urta b'chdei sheyasu. And when you wait till tonight, lo mati le'anamine, there won't be any hana because you waited anyways. Even though it was Mazid, it is okay. You're not getting hana. So that's Rabbi Meir shita. Again, b'shogeg, everybody mutter right away. B'Mazid, everybody mutter that night. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, as Rashi explains, b'shogeg yochal motzi Shabbos v'lo b'Shabbos. B'shogeg, no. B'shogeg, you can't get benefit from on Shabbos or anybody else either. V'u'adin lachrini. Rabbi Meir says everybody get benefit that day. Rabbi Yehuda says nobody that day. The avagav the b'shogeg chiyav skila leka aver mi'ika. Because even b'shogeg is it asur, you have to bring a carbon for that. U'pidei mechlesh yasu. Is it still called a maisa avera b'shogeg? And therefore you can't get any hana from a maisa avera. So Rashi explains Rabbi Yehuda shita that you have to wait till Motzi Shabbos. Lo nimte hana me avera. Va'aidi the boy, and Rashi just asks Va'aidi the boy lemisti seifa lo yochal alamis b'didei aval achridi shari. Since the seifa says that he can never eat it, but others can. The iu avadi surah katzura but achridi lo tanaration b'didei. But that's the chilik according to Rashi between Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. What about Rabbi Yochanan HaSandlar? Rabbi Sandler is the most machmer shita, right? He says b'shogeg yochal other people. but not him. He can never get benefit, even if he was done b'shogeg. So the Gemara seems to say Rabbi Yochanan Sandler holds that Maaseh Shabbos is an Issa Daraisa. That's why it's different. Rabbi Yochanan, source number 3, page 228. My time, Rabbi Yochanan Sandler explains the Gemara in the Darish, Rabbi Fia, Pischa de Beinasiya. As Rabbi Chia explained, Ushmartem as a Shabbos ki kodesh hilachem. Keep Shabbos because it is kodesh for you. Ma kodesh asur ba'achila. Af Maaseh Shabbos asur ba'achila. Just kodesh, just like kudshim, something. The word sacred means asur ba'achila if it's a carbon. So the Maaseh Shabbos, we compare Maaseh Shabbos as kodesh, and therefore it's asur. Says the Gemara, my kodesh asur ba'ana, af Maaseh Shabbos asur ba'ana. So kodesh, a carbon, is asur ba'ana. This Ramila, so you want to say this Maaseh Shabbos is also asur ba'ana? No. Tamalomar lachem shelachem yehei. So for you, yachal afilu b'shogeg, you might think that even b'shogeg it should be asur. Tamalomar mechaleha almost you must. B'mezid amarti lachav lo b'shogeg. So b'mezid, according to Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, that's what he said. B'mezid, Rabbi Yochanan Sandler holds lo yochal alamis v'lo acherim. It's asur ba'achila like kachim, but it's not asur b'hana because it says lachem. Pligim b'ravacha v'ravina. Right, the source daraisa is kodesh ilochem. Uman damar derabanan amar kra kodesh he kodesh ve'maseh kodesh. There's a diak that it's not. Okay, machlokes whether it's daraisa or derabanan. So who do we paskin? And Rabbi Yochanan Hasandlar. Tosfos notes in Gittin Daf Nun Gimel that Rabbi Meir's shita regarding Maaseh Shabbos aligns about Rabbi Meir's mazid is like Rabbi Yehuda's shogeg, and Rabbi Yehuda's mazid is like Rabbi Yochanan Sandler's shogeg. So it's somewhat of a parallel. Tosfos says, call the Milsa mazid the Rabbi Meir shogeg to Rabbi Yehuda because they each get one more machmir, going from Rabbi Meir to Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. Mazid Rabbi Yehuda shogeg to Rabbi Yochanan Hasandler. Who do we paskin? So the Rif and the Rambam paskin like the middle shita, Rabbi Yehuda. Again, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? The Rambam says it. Source number 5, Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Vav. Yisrael shasam halacha b'Shabbos. Right, we're not talking about Amir la'akum. That was last 2 shiurim. This is a Jew doing malacha. Yisrael shasam halacha b'Shabbos. Im avar va'asa b'zadon. If a Jew did a avera b'zadon, also l'lanos b'yosa shab malacha la'olam. That person usher forever. B'shar Yisrael motel l'lanos b'lamoti Shabbos miyad. There are other Jews. Moti Shabbos, right away. Shinei Amar, which rounded with the Shabbos Kiyodesh. He Kodesh ve'in Maaseh Kodesh. Quoting that is an Isur D'Rabbanan. Isur D'Rabbanan, like the Gemara says. Ketzad, for example. Yisrael should be Shol b'Shabbos b'mezid, a Jew that cooks b'mezid. L'motzi Shabbos, so that Jew cannot get benefit, can never eat that food. But Moti Shabbos, Yochal La'acherim, Avolo lo Yochal Alamis. Moti Shabbos, other people can eat it, if even it was done b'mezid. But not to him. If it was shogeg, then even he could benefit from it. So the Rambam and the Rif paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. Tosfos notes that the Gemara in Chulin implies the halacha is like Rabbi Meir Meikir Hadin, even though we might not say that in a shiur. The Gemara says there in Chulin Tezvav, in source number 6, Amar of Chana Bar Ami, Ki Mori Luhu Rev La Talmideh, when Rabbi used to give shiur, Mori Luhu Rabbi Meir, he used to publicize, tell his Talmidim. He's a paskin like Rabbi Meir. V'chi darish, but pirka, but when he gave a public shiur, darish Rabbi Yehuda misham amei haaretz. Some people were a little lax in their Shmir Shabbos. He didn't want to paskin such a kula, so therefore he would keep it private if you asked him. But otherwise, he would not. And Tosfos therefore paskins like Rabbi Meir. Meir mashra shekin halacha, chulun tezvav, v'chein darish rava perakira, kir Rabbi Meir. So machlokas Rishonim, we paskin like, rov Rishonim, follow the Rif and the Rambam. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, and that's what we pass in Shulchan Aruch. Again, mazid, the person himself can never get benefit, but others can on Moti Shabbos. Shogeg even that day. It says in Shulchan Aruch, this is a shiur ches. That's the Shimon Bishol, and that was the context of the malacha in the Gemara. So it's not dafka Bishol halacha, but that's where it's discussed. Hamavashal b'Shabbos, the Rama is. Osha asa achas mishar malachas, b'mezid asa lola olam, b'mezid asur tib forever. Ulacher muter b'motzi Shabbos miyad. And others, miyad motzi Shabbos. Note miyad, we'll get to that. Ubishogeg asur bo bayom gam lacherim. B'shogeg, it's always asur. It's always asur during the day. Maaseh Shabbos, according to Yehuda, is always asur during the day. Even shogeg. The difference is after Shabbos, other people, mazid, can get benefit from it, but not him. And shogeg, even he can get benefit from it. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins like Rov Rishon and the Rambam and the Rif Achulu. The Gra in the Birag Ra on the Shulchan Aruch is not so convinced. He thinks Rabbi Meir Maker didn't like that Gemara in Chulin. And the only reason we were machmer was because, like the Gemara said, of Amei Haaretz. But really, Me'ikar Din, it's mutter, and because the Gemara says, I guess the opposite of Niskatnu Hadoros, right? Nischasdu Hasdoros. So we would be able to be Mekel, says the Gra in source number 9. Umashakasva Gaonim Bechiraran Vaharamban. Tolahaf Yeshluf so Krib Yehuda. Bishum did a fishe Ame Ha'aratzos Gaban. Right, there are people that are lax. V'chein Kasav Arash Lessa. Like Varkasvu Tosas Perkama Diyantiv. Shmamina Danan Chashivi B'nei Torah. Wow. So Machlokes the Gra is Mekel against the Shulchan Aruch. The Mishnah quotes the Gra and said, "B'makam Sorech." One can be Mekel. What again? What's the kula here? The kula is, in the case of, again, Rameir says shogeg, he can benefit even bo bayom. That's Rameir's opinion. Shogeg. Good. That's what Mishnah Berurah says. B'makam saref lachir. But Gemara pligi b'yishog amazid. The das Shulchan Aruch higdas Rav Yehuda. Shkin iskimu harif haramam vagonim. Vagroh hiskim b'yur l'shitas hatosos v'siyatam. The Gemara was maker like Tosfos. The pasuk Rabbi Meir. The amazid aser bein lo lachir motzi Shabbos v'chulu shogeg miad. U'makam et sarech yishus machazeh b'bishol b'shogeg. That is the kula. If you look in the Menuchas Ava, Ramosha Levi rules like in Mishnah Berurah. The Yalkid Yosef, he goes more straightforward, the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch, like the Rif and the Rambam, like Rebbe Yehuda Shita. That is all part 1. That's the background, right? And that's what we say, by any malacha that is done. Shogeg versus Mason. What about the next topic? What about Misasek? Misasek, we discussed this when we spoke about Klali Shabbos. What if it's even less than Shogeg? What's shogeg? I do a malacha, I don't realize it's Shabbos. Or I do a malacha, I don't realize that this malacha is aser. But what if I don't even realize that I'm involved in the act? That's what's called the sugya of misasek. I'm involved in the act, but I don't even realize I'm involved in the act. So that's going to be even more mekel. But again, there are 2 types of misasek, as we'll see. Sometimes I'll go into the bayat, I'll go into a room, I'll turn on a light. I know it's Shabbos, I know turning on a light is aser, but I just did it by rote. That's closer to shogeg. What if I brush against the wall and the light goes on from my shoulder? That's misasik that we're talking about. That would be different. That's not even called a maisa. Says the Piskei Shuvos in source number 12 on page 232. V'dafka b'shigas Shabbos or shigas malacha. This whole discussion of mazid and shogeg and limits, according to Rabbi Yehuda, everything is usher on Shabbos. That's only when there's a shkaga. Aval ba'ofan shlonis kamin klal malacha. But if I didn't have any kavanah for the malacha at all, kigo jehidlik es ha'orach hashmal. I turned on the light al yedei shenish on below miskavein alameteg. I leaned on the switch by accident. Misaseku. V'gam eina b'chlal maleches nachsheves. That's nothing. Umuter lehanos me'or af Shabbos. Then you can get benefit from that. That's even less than shogeg. And therefore, even if you pass like Rabbi Yehuda maker a din like we Shulchan Aruch does, you can be maker by misasek. Aval im hidlik as I met the kachashmal biyado. But if you turned on the light normally, mitoch hergelu b'mosachol, just because you go into a room, you turn on a light, vaday shogeg mikri. That's called shogeg. Hulay af karav l'meisa. Even karav l'meisa. Wow. Okay, good. What about if somebody consciously doesn't act because somebody else told me it's mutter? It's like the Par Helam Dover Schultz Seabor case. Right, that's the Shulchan Aruch Harav. If I act, so again, is that what's called shogeg? So we just spoke about 2 types of misasek. We're machal between the 2. What if somebody told me this is mutter and I did it? So Shulchan Aruch Harav says, "Im asal pioras chacham sheta'a nikra shogeg." That's also called the shogeg. V'odin hashochech shu Shabbos o shehi malacha. That, as we said, that's the regular case of shogeg. So my poskim agree that throughout Hilchos Shabbos, shogeg and mazid are specifically relating to conscious or unconscious violations of Shabbos. And that's what we're talking about, shogeg and misasek and the like. What about chilonim? What about non-observant Jews? What is their halacha? They'll do a malacha. They know it's Shabbos, but they have no idea about the sanctity of Shabbos. Is that called shogeg? Is that called mazid? That's a serious issue because we just saw that there's a nafkamina halacha by shogeg. So everybody can benefit it after Shabbos. By mazid, he can't. Okay, but so you want to say he doesn't make a difference? Yeah, because he's not going to care anyway. But according to Rabbi Meir, there's a difference, mazid and shogeg, even on the day of. So let's see. Maybe that's going to be called misasek because they don't even realize that it's Shabbos. Let's see. Contemporary poskim, as is mentioned here on 233, generally agree that it is defined as a mazid. It's defined as a mazid. even though mitzad their gavra, they might be called tinok shenishba, mitzidenu is called a mason. And therefore, others are permitted to benefit from the malacha only after Shabbos, as the Shulchan Aruch poskim like Rabbi Yehuda. Poskim disagree. What about, this is interesting. Fine, it's called mason, you have to wait till after Shabbos, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't make a difference. You have to wait anyway, with the shogeg or mason. You have to wait b'chtei shiyasu. We saw that if a Jew does malacha b'shogeg, so then, or even a mason, you get benefit right after Shabbos. But if a goy did malacha, we discussed in previous shiur, you have to wait b'chtei shiyasu. So the time that it takes, because next time you're worried that you're going to ask the guy to do it for you next time, right? If you don't wait that time. So what about a non-observant Jew? What would he be called? What would he be categorized as in this case? The Mishnah Berurah quotes two reasons why we usually have to wait b'chtei sheyasu, right? One from the Magen Avraham and one from the Taz in the following source. Again, the Mishnah Berurah is talking about Jews who observe Shabbos, but we'll see how it relates to those who don't observe Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah in source 14. Mutar l'mod Shabbos miyad. So when it comes to a Jew doing malacha, so as we said, you can get benefit right away. Even if the one who was cooked for, delo be'inon lahamtin b'chdei sheyasu ela b'malacha nasas ide eno Yehudi b'shvil Yisrael. The concept of b'chdei sheyasu is for a guy's malacha, not for a Jew's malacha. Why? Number one, mishum dekal be'inov iser de amir la'ovid gilulim. Amir al-Akim is very calm in people's eyes. The Yavo Lasos Kin Pamacheres. And if you're able to get benefit right away, if somebody violated Amir al-Akim and we allow them to get benefit right after Shabbos, they're going to do it next time too. Make them wait, then they're not going to get any extra benefit from it. If a Jew does it, we're not worried. We don't think you can ask another Jew to do malacha. So number one, when it comes to a guy, Maaseh Shabbat of a guy, we're worried that you're going to ask him. It's calm in people's eyes, Amir la'akim. So we're worried that you're going to ask him next week. You're not going to ask him. We're not worried that you're going to ask a Jew to do it, so there's no reason to delay. And number two, not only you're not going to ask a Jew, he's not going to listen to you. He's not going to listen to you. So again, that's a big nafkamina. Big nafkamina are in our case. The first reason that there's no kanas because we don't think that you're going to ask a Jew to do malacha for you next week, only a non-Jew. So to today, this may be relevant, as it says, many or most observant Jews would not ask another Jew to do malacha. But if the focus is that Jew won't or will do it again, so then of course they're gonna do it because they did it this week. The River of Nevinzal, it is safer assumes that a chiloni is dino kemezil in yitzeh. He assumes that one can benefit immediately after Shabbos from malacha performed by non-Jew because he's considered a guy regarding this. Not a guy mamish v'gavra, but his action is considered like a guy, and therefore one can get benefit right away. The Yalkut Yosef also is permitted to get benefit right after Shabbos because the status of those who performed mazid by a Jew in this case is similar to a guy. But if you look at the Piskei Teshuvos in 17, no. A Jew who habitually violates Shabbos is the same as someone who habitually. I'm sorry, I missaid. According to the Yalkut Yosef, is mazid considered as if a Jew did it, and therefore you don't have to wait b'chtei sheyasu because it's considered a Jew did it is different than a guy doing it. But the Piskei Teshuvos says no, of course the Pri Megadim that Yisrael mumar la'avodah zara dido ka'akum. And the Yisrael Mumar l'Shabbos, and therefore Dido Ka'akum. And Akum, as we said, is more chamor here because of those two reasons that the Mishnah Berurah quoted, and therefore one would have to weigh b'chdei sheyasu. Very important yesod. The Mishnah Berurah quotes the name of the Pri Megadim. Okay, this is something that has to be publicized because it comes up often. Sometimes children go to their parents' houses. Oh, they don't keep this chumrah, and I don't know if they're allowed to warm it up this way. Sometimes after young men and women learn more about halacha, they go home and they see that their parents do something different than when they were taught. So are they allowed to eat the food? Maaseh Shabbos. So this Pri Megadim is chashav because 99% of the time, this Pri Megadim is relevant and the food can be eaten. Says the Mishnah Berurah in the name of the Pri Megadim. If there is any authoritative shita out there that says what they did is mutter, you can eat the food. even if we don't poskin that way, even if it's a shita techuya, but still we can eat the food. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Big Shin Ches. That's where this action is. Source 18. V'chol sheyesh safek plukta bazeh. Yihavi b'chal bishul olav. It does a machlokas. O b'shar malachos ki hagavna ein lesser b'diavad. It's mutter b'diavad. To call it Isser Azeh Rakmi D'Rabbanan, the whole we paskin that Maaseh Shabbos is D'Rabbanan, not like the one day in the Gemara by Rabbi Yossi Yochanan Samlar. We paskin as D'Rabbanan, and therefore if there's any shita out there that it forms the basis for what was done, B'diavad, the food can be eaten, Sveika D'Rabbanan L'Kula. And therefore, again, some examples given here on page 236. Let's say a Jew warms up, takes soup out of the fridge and warms it up on a hot plate. It makes it piping hot. Oh my gosh, bishul achar bishul. No, the Rambam and Teimanim Jews say, ein bishul achar bishul afilu balach. And therefore, even if it's warmed up, I don't paskin that way. Man Ashkenazi, even the Shulchan Aruch doesn't paskin that way. Doesn't matter. There's a Rambam. There's the Teimanim, and therefore one could eat the soup. Or he quotes also, we had a machlokas Rambam Rashba. Once, where's the line of bishul daraisa? Is it from 0 to Machol Ben Drusai? What about after Machol Ben Drusai? To get to Mavushal Kol Tzarcho, is that Bishul Daraisa? Or not? So there are those that say Machlokas Rambam Rashba. Some say that no, there's no more Bishul relevant. So again, if something was Mavushal Kol Tzarcho, and now it goes further, again, Yesh Makam Lahakel, because there is a sheet out there that says it's mutter. The Archei Shabbos also quotes Bishul Achar Afiyah, right? That also is a Machlokas, right? Yereim and the Ravya, source 19. If somebody puts, baked croutons into a hot kli rishon, afiyah bishul achar afiyah. Doesn't matter, that's a machlokas. Mutter b'diavad lo'ochla, mishum t'din bishul achar afiyah, shanui b'machlokas poskim. Or the other way. What about davar gush? He quotes another example. We had a machlokas, davar gush, the taz, the marshal. If you have a boiling hot potato from the cholent on your plate. So some say if it's still mavush, if it's still machlo bench, if it's still davar gush is considered like a kli rishon. Not everybody says that. It's machlokas. So again, if you put the coleslaw and it gets cooked from the potato on your plate, it's okay. One can eat it because somebody says it is mutter. Very important prima gadim that's quoted in the Shulchan Aruch. Good. We continue. What about pots? What about if somebody cooked on Shabbos? We're talking about the food. What about the pots? So the Magen Avram quotes the Rashba. That is an additional problem. That the food, the pot, is forbidden. It should be kosher. Says the Magen Avram in Shin Yud, the beginning of Shin Yud, right? Bishul. Aser lo la'olam mashma barashba simin kuf ayin hey taktera asura gam kain. The pot is also usher, and it needs to be kashered. And the Magen Avram, Mishnah Berurah quotes like the Magen Avram. Others, the Yalkut Yosef disagrees that one can be meko. L'chadchila should try to do it, but he thinks that the Rashba is only following Rabbi Yochanan Sandlar, who says that it's a daraisa. But so if one can, it's better. But let's say he quotes in 21. If somebody's parents are machalei Shabbos, but they cook on Shabbos, but they always cook kosher, and you know that they cook kosher, so then you could eat their food that was made in their pots, right? Because Meikar Adin, it would be mutter. Good. We saw that even according to Rabbi Yochanan HaSandlar, the Gemara said beferish that it is only Isser Achila. It's not Isser Hana, like we said. Like Kodesh, no, Lachem Yehei, and that's what the Mishnah Berurah also says. Mikol Makom mutar l'lahanos midameha shel malach. One final point. Notes in Dalak or Befeder, he says, in a case where there wasn't a product, there wasn't like a cooking done, there was just a situation that was created, so Pnei Halacha assumes there's no problem there. In Dalak or Befeder, the Echad Kibos of Amazid, somebody turns off the light, you could go to sleep in that Feder. Even though Afshakal Yota Lishom Kashar or Kabui, there's no Maaseh Shabbos in that case. Right, I think it's based on the Chai Adam. There's a Chai Adam that says there's no Maaseh Shabbos by Hotza'ah. I carried from place A to place B. There's no Maaseh Shabbos there. He says because Hotza'ah is Malacha Gerua, like Tosfos says in Shabbos and Daf Beis. It's a different level. It's an inferior type of Malacha. Nothing is created. There's no product. So also there wouldn't be any Maaseh Shabbos. One final point for today's shiur, and that is everything we've been talking about so far today has been Mazid versus Shogeg, Daraisa. What about D'Rabbanan? What about getting benefit from an Isser D'Rabbanan that was spoken about? That's the Rambam talks about this here in Hilchos Shabbos and Baruch Chav Gimel on page 239. If somebody is tovel, a kli that needs tevila, if somebody's tovel on Shabbos, that's Asr Midrabbanan. The Gemara in the Beis has a couple of days. The maskana is it's tikkun. If something is tamei or it's like tevilas kalim, I'm misaking it. That's a drabanan of bonus. The Rambam says if somebody bishogeg violates Shabbos, so then this is a the Rambam says also hatbel kalim tameim b'Shabbos mepeshu kibsakin kli hanav kalim b'Shabbos bishogeg yishtamesh b'hem. Bishogeg, one could use them. B'mezid lo yishtamesh b'hen alamos Shabbos. B'mezid you have to wait. So it comes down like according to the Rambam. The Rambam passes like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says b'shogeg you have to wait, but here b'shogeg he says right away mutter. There must be that by Isurei D'Rabbanan, Rabbi Yehuda would agree with Rabbi Meir. And that's what the Rambam here says, seems to pass like Rabbi Meir, that b'shogeg, one can get benefit right away, got to put these two Rambams together. The only way is over there he's talking about Isser D'Oraisa, and over here he's talking about Isser D'Rabbanan. It's a little difficult, because the Gemara in Mesechus Gittin seems to say that Rabbi Yehuda is kones, someone who violates Shabbos, even if the Isser is only D'Rabbanan, right? That's the Gemara in where the Gemara quotes us Stira and Rabbi Yehuda, Mitame, Midame, Menasech. Some of these are Hezek She'eno Nikar. Remember that sugya, but the Gemara seems to say that even in Issa D'Rabbanan, Rabbi Yehuda is kones. So how could the Rambam not paskin that way? If the Rambam paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, that b'shogeg you have to wait by Issa D'Oraisa, so you should see the same thing by Issa D'Rabbanan. If Rabbi Yehuda holds that way, he's in the middle. So the Bir Halacha has this kasha. And he leaves it b'tzarachiyin. Quotes in source number 26, Shin Yefes, the beginning of the Bir Halacha in Shin Yefes, Bavasha b'Shabbos Asaf, Kuzet Tzarach La'ayin, the Chazar B'Shem Agra. The Malacha D'Rabbanan Yehuda Savak Rabbi Meir. By Malacha D'Rabbanan Rabbi Yehuda agrees. Umashma Shem the Beilin Shom Beilin Meizim. He mashma Meha Rambam. He quotes that Rambam about Tfilas Kalim. V'Amai Haladivrei HaRambam, the pasuk Rabbi Yehuda. Malacha D'Oraisa Meizid Aser. The Rabbanan Tzarach Leis Meizid Kain. Rabbi Yehuda so over the Katsu Shogi got to Meizid B'Drabanan. Avo b'Meizid Gufa lo Matzina Dor Sheichal Rabbi Yehuda B'Drabanan D'Oraisa. On the at least partially on the Meizid level, we don't find that Rabbi Yehuda is machalik. On the Meizid level, even my Nisa D'Rabanan b'Meizid, there shouldn't be a difference. But Tzarachian and the Rambam says b'Meizid, he shouldn't leave it till Moti Shabbos. So Rabbi Yehuda, it's forever. So therefore, there's a problem. The Pri Megadim is machmir, but the Sharatzi and the Mishnah Berurah himself is Mako, and he says there shouldn't be any difference. B'Komakam Likar Adin 27 Eini Yodei Atawa Shel Rambam. Amai Michael b'Meizid Lo b'Motzi Shabbos. I don't know why he's Mako there. Meaning, why does he say that Rabbi Yehuda is more Mako by his Meizid D'Rabbanans? Hakivich Apasak and Mavash Rabbi Yehuda Lamatzina b'Gemara. Where you don't find the chilik. We come up on the Yindina Vada Ein Lahafmer Mazep. Not the Machmer, because remember the Graz Mako Maker Adin like Rabbi Meir. That's what he says again. Pasak Agra Filu Malachad Araisa Rabbi Meir. This has related to, if you have in the last source in 28, are electrical devices. Electrical devices, according to most, remember we discussed, is D'Rabbanan. And if that's true, so then that makes a big nafkamina for this Rambam. B'Meizid, even for the person himself on Motzi Shabbos, and B'Shogeg, even on that day. Again, you have a whole chart here on page 243 about the non-tangible benefits, pots, Malacha D'Rabbanan. You have a shogeg, mezid, all of this comes up. And next time we have to get into who may not benefit. We're going to get into articles which cannot be changed and contemporary cases about the Maaseh Shabbat. We'll get into that next time in the second half of our discussion of Maaseh Shabbat.